Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers, sisters, and respected scholars, thank you for joining us here today. I'd like to begin by extending my condolences to all of you, and of course to the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mahdi, ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. The lecture for tonight will be it's a two-night majalis for Fatimiyya. Tonight we will start with a short lecture by Syed Naqvi, followed by eulogies by Haj KhazAli. So I'd like to begin tonight and welcome Syed Naqvi with three of your loudest salawats. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا حبيبنا حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه مبين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. First and foremost, if the respected brothers can inshallah just come to the first row inshallah so we can have a bit more of a interactive inshallah environment. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Brothers and sisters, the human soul itself is a battleground, and we would say an area of two major competing faculties. When we look at what these two faculties are, it comes to our awareness and it comes to our understanding that the nafs and the ruh are in constant battle with each other. The ruh tells us to do one thing and the nafs tells us to do another. The ruh tells us to do something good and the nafs tells us to do something bad. We see in our own everyday lives when we are encountered by the millions of micro problems that we come across, this now comes a decision between the ruh or the nafs. Should I go ahead with this? Should I go to the mosque and listen to the majlis? Or should I stay at home and not do anything? Should I pray the salah on the time that is given? Or should I carry on scrolling through my phone? We can see that time and time again, the dichotomy and the pluralism between the soul and between the nafs itself is given to us on a very, very regular basis. So that being said, we understand that all pluralities and dualities are non-existent in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because there's just one singular nature of Allah. But in understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we come to understand that there are natures and there are ways in order for us to actually recognize Him. And this recognition comes in the form of dualities and pluralities. Mathalan, the nafs and the ruh is one of the dualities that we have come across. One aspect takes us to the heaven and one aspect takes us back down. And this competing nature is what gives us the title of Ashraf al-Makhluqat. What is different between us and the angels? We believe the angels to be of a very high maqam. We believe the angels to be of a very high station. However, the distinguishing factor between us and the angels is exactly this, brothers and sisters. We see that we have the ability to do wrong. However, we choose not to. They don't have the ability to do wrong. Therefore, they are capped at a certain extent. Therefore, we see that the ability to sin and the ability to fall is a very, very, very human characteristic. However, now, to what extent are we actually going to utilize this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, you have the ability to attain a maqam higher than the malaik. Can you imagine a maqam higher than the malaik? Higher than the malaik in the realm that we are currently in. So imagine yourselves right now, currently, and you would be in a station that is higher than that of Jibra'il, of Mika'il. And you can also be lower than the animals. So the ikhtiyar and the free will that we have is really a double-edged sword. However, as I mentioned, the dualities that are given to us are an aspect for understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the topic and the theme of our discussion for the next 2 days will be exactly this. The theme is going to be the inner and the outer struggles of the mu'min. What are the inner struggles of the mu'min? And what are the outer struggles of the mu'min? How can I beat my inner struggle? And how can I beat my outer struggle? How does conquering my inner self help me to conquer my outer self? What's the complementary nature between the two? And how can we relate this to the life of Sayyidah Fatima? So that being said, our discussion, as I said, will be divided into these two major components. Today will be the discussion of the inner self. And tomorrow, inshallah, will be the discussion, if we are alive, on the outer self. So the discussion on the inner self is a very interesting one. And I would say the conquering of such makes the outer self a lot easier to handle. The reason why we have a lot of misunderstandings in our outlook and our akhlaq today is because we haven't really conquered elements of ourself. What do I mean? Mathalan, when we talk about the zahir and the batin, another duality, we see that every act and every amal and every part of akhlaq has two components, a zahir and a batin. So when we look at wudu, I ask you, what's the zahir of wudu? The zahir of wudu is very clear. There's no distinction and there's no discrepancy in regards to what the zahir of wudu is. You need to wash your face, you need to wipe your arms, you need to wipe your head, and then you need to wipe your feet. There's nothing more to it. However, as I mentioned, there's a duality in this. When we look at what the batini analysis of wudu is, we can see very clearly that the washing of the face represents what? The washing of all of the faces that are other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we are washing our arms, what does that represent? The batini analysis. We can see that the arm represents causes and effect. So when I'm doing wudu and I'm washing my arm, I'm washing away all causes and effects other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I'm wiping my head, what does this represent? And what's the batini analysis of this? We can see that this is the wiping of the intellect, that I am purifying my intellect and I'm purifying myself from anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I conclude on the wiping of the feet. What does this represent? Is it simply a must and we go? Absolutely not. We see that we are washing our feet to take us to places that will draw us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather than our feet to take us to places that will take us further away from Him. So whenever we do any act of ibadah and whenever we do any act of worship, we understand that there are always two components to it. However, unfortunately, in the day and age that we live in, we have ritualized a large degree of religion. Everything is rituals and slogans. However, we need to understand there's a batiniyat between the slogans and there is a batin between the lines themselves. So when we look at wudu, we have seen the analysis. When we look at salah, I ask you, is this any different? When I stand in qiyam, is this any less than, for example, the tafasir of wudu? When I go into ruku', is this any different? When I go in sujood, is this any different? There's a meaning, there's a flavor, there's an aspect of us to learn and to actually grow in depth and development through these particular acts of ibadat. Therefore, we need to understand that if we extract ourselves from the ritualization of religion, then from this point on, we can actually see that there's meaning and depth to our amal. How many times do we actually go through this thought process when we are doing wudu? I am now consciously wiping my intellect from all that is other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we connected the bataniyah to the actual things that are zahir, everything would now come into play. Now, the topic of today's lecture, as I mentioned, was the inner aspect of the struggle of a mu'min. Tomorrow will be the outer aspect of the struggle of a mu'min. So, when talking about how one can actually succeed in this struggle, how one can actually succeed in this, the liberation that they're going through, we see that the most common answer is what? Knowledge. If I ask the question, how can I actually conquer myself? How can I actually make sure that I develop spiritually? How can I attain the maqamat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised me? That you will attain a station that will be higher than the malaik. The first answer is that of knowledge. We need to gain ilm. رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا اقْرَأْ بِاسْمِ رَبِّكَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ. They quote hadith and they quote ayah. That we need to make sure that we go and pursue knowledge in order for us to actually succeed in our inward struggle. This is not incorrect. However, it's incomplete. When we talk about ilm, I ask you, brothers and sisters, did Iblis have a lack of knowledge? When we look at the case study of Iblis, I ask you, did he have a lack of knowledge? When we look at his ibadat, they say one of his sujood with 6,000 years. When we look at his ilm, we say that it was well known. He was a jinn who was on this earth. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please can you raise me to the heavens so I can worship you? Because I'm unable to worship you in this area of bloodshed and murder. And it was accepted. The ilm of Iblis was profound. However, what was missing? What component was not there? And what did we actually come to understand is a far more important factor than knowledge itself. Tazkiyatun nafs. An individual who obtains knowledge without tazkiyah, an individual who obtains ilm without purifying themselves, is an individual who's trying to decorate a house that's already dirty, is an individual who's trying to plant a seed in a soil that is infertile. So when we look at tazkiyatun nafs, we see that of course the pursuing of ilm is incredibly important. And a lot of us have appropriated most of our life to the pursuing of ilm, whether it's in your universities, whether it's in your degrees, whether you're at home and you're spending time with your children. So that's why you see the spiritual perfection of a woman is far higher than that of a man. And we can see this in traditions, because they spend a lot more time, for example, in matters with family and matters of akhlaq, and this shoots their spirituality upwards. However, when we look at it on a very particular lens, such as that of the ulum of mathematics or physics or biology, we can see very clearly that on this lens, this is a knowledge that could quite potentially take you to hell. So ilm in and of itself is not something that we are seeking in isolation. Hatta it's said that ilm tawheed is something that can take you to hell. Ilm irfan is something that can take you to hell. These ulum are things that are very dangerous if we do not have the tazkiyatun nafs. Therefore, our mawdu' of today, which is how can I conquer my inner self and how can I succeed in the inner struggle. Step number one, I need to understand tazkiyatun nafs is the name of the game. And tazkiyatun nafs is the matter that I actually need to allude to and move towards. Of course, the consuming of knowledge is incredibly important. Of course, going towards ilm is of utmost importance, but doing this without tazkiyah is of absolutely no avail. We can see this in universities right now. We have certain professors and we have certain teachers who have a particular speciality and they are very good at that. However, the akhlaq is not necessarily there. So we would see that in order for us to actually bind this to and to make that knowledge applicable, someone would say this particular individual has knowledge. Why hasn't it taken them closer to God? There was no tazkiyah. There was no purification. There was no cleaning of the soul before actually obtaining it. Therefore, the point being made is that when we go about answering our opening question, which is how do we succeed and conquer in the inward struggle, the answer to that primarily is the purification of the self and tazkiyatun nafs. And we see that life itself is a process of tazkiyatun nafs. And life itself is a process of purification. And when you look at the stages that the human soul develops through, you would see that refinement and tazkiyah is very much the name of the game, as mentioned. How so? In life, what are we constantly trying to do? Better ourselves and refine ourselves. After we pass away, does this finish? I ask you, what is barzakh? Barzakh is a process of refinement. And barzakh is a process of purification for the shortfalls that you had in this life. I ask you, someone passes away and they go to hell. Is this now where everything stops? Is this now where refinement ends? Is this now where we can now no longer make any progress towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Quite the contrary. We see the literature is very clear in this aspect, that it says that the whole purpose of hell is refinement. When we anthropomorphize God and say that He's thrown us into hell because He's angry, we've limited Him. We've made Him into a person. However, when we understand that hell itself is simply an area, an arena for purification, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants nothing else but the purification of our soul and the purification of our nafs. And only when our soul has been purified are we then able to actually reap the rewards of Jannah. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want us to be there. This is a very important point. Is that we are incapable of perceiving the ni'amat of Jannah if we have not purified our own soul. If you put someone with a polluted soul into an area with many bounties, I ask you, would they be satisfied? You can answer that question here on earth. We see certain particular individuals, they are given all of the ni'amat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wealth, children, health, everything. I ask you, are they happy? There's depression, there's anxiety, there's sadness. Why is this the case? Because their soul is unpurified and they haven't gone through the process of tazkiyatun nafs. Therefore, inshaAllah, the conclusion of this lecture would be us trying to understand what practical steps can we actually take in regards to tazkiyatun nafs so that we can actually succeed in this inward struggle that we have. We have a tradition from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that brings this point home. He speaks about Jihadun Akbar. You are all very familiar with the tradition. It states that there was an army and they returned from the battleground. And when they returned, what did Rasulullah say? We have Imam Ja'far Sadiq narrating this tradition. He says that the army returned from the battleground and Rasulullah mentioned, congratulations upon you for completing the minor jihad. They said, Ya Rasulullah, the minor jihad? We went out and we risked our lives and we left our children, we left our wives. And you're saying this is the minor jihad? Please enlighten us. What is this major jihad that you are alluding to? And Rasulullah concluded with Jihadun Akbar, jihad of the nafs. So that's why it's important for us to start with the inward struggle. That's why it's important for us to start with the conquering of the self. Because if we are able to do this, we are able to cure the ailments in society that we have today. When we see the atrocities currently happening in Palestine, when we see the atrocities currently happening in Parachinar, when we see these things happening, we're in some sort of situation where we're trying to answer the question, why does this occur? This occurs as a result of us not answering the ailments that we have within inside ourselves. The outside, the zahir, is simply a manifestation of the batin. What we see in the outer world is simply a reflection of our inner self. Therefore, if we see mischief and bloodshed and murder in the outside, we would understand within inside ourselves there is also mischief, murder and bloodshed. So in order for us to actualize this tradition and in order for us to bring this hadith to light, we would say that Jihadun Akbar is in itself an aspect of our life that we need to conquer simply through Tazkiyatun Nafs. Now, practically speaking, and inshallah bringing an end to our discussion, how do we go about this? It's very good and it's very fine having a theoretical discussion on the importance of the inner battle and the importance of the inner self and the importance of Jihadun Akbar, but what are we actually supposed to do about it? There are two major steps given to us by the teachers of akhlaq in regards to how we can purify our souls, how we can purify ourselves in order to attain the highest levels of ma'rifah, in order to join the ranks of the malaik, and also, inshallah, to transcend them. The first of which is contemplation, and the second of which is a program of akhlaq given to us by the teachers of akhlaq, which we will, inshallah, conclude upon. Let's begin with contemplation. The first step. How can I go about tazkiyatun nafs? How can I go about cleansing my own soul? How can I go about putting myself in a position where when I obtain ilm, that ilm is taking me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead of taking me further away? This is an aspect of contemplation. And we see that contemplation in the Quran is defined and is known as tafakkur, right? Tadabbur in many cases as well. However, nonetheless, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in many occasions in the Holy Quran that contemplation is the most important aspect of a human life. And he says that those who do not contemplate and those who do not think should not even be in the same category as those who do not. Therefore, we see that when we look at contemplation, we see that contemplation is the organization of information that you already possess in order to decode and decipher new truths. The equivalent, as I mentioned, is tazkiyatun nafs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to contemplate on two things in particular. I ask you, what was the ayah that I recited at the beginning of the khutbah? سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Most definitely our signs are within the afaq, the heavens and the stars and the moon, and within inside yourselves. وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. So first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to contemplate on the universe around us. Look at the sunset and look at the stars, look at the moon and look at nature. Look within inside yourselves, you see that contemplation that we are alluding to. When we look within inside ourselves, we attempt to seek knowledge. We listen to lectures and we read books and we attain this knowledge and we attain this ilm. However, when it comes to tazkiyatun nafs, how much work are we actually doing? And we spoke about the distinction between ilm and the tazkiyah aspect. We spoke about this. That ilm in and of itself is something that's not going to allow you to attain the highest peaks of truth. We see that when an individual contemplates upon creation, you start to understand the underlying truths behind them. When an individual actually starts to analyze creation, you see that there must be a creator behind it. You see that all of this in cohesion is something that's impossible to exist if there was not an intelligent creator behind it. Of course, there are many other arguments to prove the existence of God. However, this most definitely is one of them. The example I usually give for this is one of when I was studying in Iran and when I was in Qom. So I got off the airport in Tehran and the taxi driver was taking me to Qom and we were on the Autobahn, Qom and Tehran. When we were driving, this individual, he stopped at a very random and ambiguous point. There was no meaning, there was no masjid, there was nothing there. And he said that I must stop here. And then we said, why? We're running late, we want to get back to Qom and so on and so forth. He said, no, I must wait. We said, very well. So he went, he did 2 rak'ah, and then he came and he drove off. We were really insisting, what was the purpose of your stay? And he wasn't telling us. However, at the end he broke. He said that I was entirely relieved of religion. Nothing to do with religion at all. Once my tire, this drew my intrigue. So I went to the place that the bee was taking the grains of food to. And he said that there were layers of rock where it was taking food to, and it was going inside one of the cracks and coming out. He said, as I took out these layers of rock, I saw that there was one ant. And this one ant was stuck between the rocks. And this bee was bringing food so that ants can receive sustenance. And he said, if there's such an order for something as small and, in his opinion, insignificant as an ant, wouldn't there be an underlying force that governs the universe? So for him, analyzing the universe brought him to belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For him, analysis of the universe is drawn from when we actually look at the contemplation in acting. Not just difficulty in acting, difficulty in doing the right thing at the right time. Is this the right decision? Is this not the right decision? Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I say this? Should I not say this? Should I listen to this? Should I not listen to this? What's the cure to this, brothers and sisters? Contemplation. An individual who contemplates is an individual who thinks in principles, and an individual who contemplates is an individual who's able to apply action for when it's actually needed. And we would say that a brilliant example of this is given by Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Where he says that patience is from Allah and being in a rush is something that's from shaitan. And he said that you can learn this lesson from a dog. Imagine, Rasulullah is telling us we should learn something from the dog. He mentions that when you throw a piece of food to a dog, what does it do? Does it eat it immediately? No, it smells it, it sees if it's okay. And if it is, then it will eat it. He said, your maqam is far higher than that of an animal. Therefore, before you do something, think. Before you do something, contemplate. Before you do something, actually try to consider what are the varying factors to this consideration. So the, inshallah, end of our lecture will come to this point where we state that contemplation, we've heard the traditions. 1 hour of contemplation is 1 year of ibadah. 1 hour of contemplation is 7 years of ibadah. 1 year of contemplation is 70 years of ibadah. Are all of these traditions true? Absolutely. And who did the investigation? Of the individual and a companion by the name of Miqdad. Miqdad heard from one place, 1 hour of contemplation is worth. He went to Rasulullah. He said, I'm in a predicament. I'm hearing all of these different scenarios. What could be the case? So the companions in question were Abu Huraira, Ibn Abbas, and a third companion. He said, what is it that you contemplate on? He said, I contemplate on the universe. I contemplate on your science. I contemplate on the sun and the moon and the things that we have around us. He said, most verily, 1 hour of your contemplation is 1 year of ibadah. Secondly, he said to Ibn Abbas, what is it that you contemplate on? He says, I contemplate upon the last day. And he said, most verily, your 1 hour of contemplation is worth 7 years of ibadah. Finally, he concluded on the companion, and he said, what do you contemplate on? He says, I contemplate on the severity of the punishment of the akhirah. And he said, most verily, this is worth 70 years of ibadah. So we see the importance of contemplation in our life. And if we actually focus upon contemplation, the tazkiyat an-nafs would actually come into play. So that being said, we see that time and time again, there is a movement towards contemplation, and contemplation leans itself very smoothly into accountability. An individual who understands accountability is an individual who contemplates. An individual who takes accountability is an individual who has purified their soul. What do we mean? Mathalan, if we say that we have some things that are jabri and we have some things that are in ikhtiyar, this is a consideration that we must, things that we can actually do accountability for every aspect and element of our life. If something happened, it's my fault. If something happened, it's my responsibility. Taking responsibility and taking accountability for all that you do is the recipe for human creation. Why do I say this? I ask you a very simple question, brothers and sisters. What was the difference between Nabi Adam and Iblis? Both of them disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why was one destined as Ashraf al-Makhluqat and given a maqam in the highest heaven, and the other one was sentenced to eternal damnation and they were to reside in the depths of hell? Why? What distinction do we have between the two? Both of them sinned. Both of them disobeyed Allah. What's the distinction that we have here? Accountability. When Nabi Adam did something wrong, he said that I made a mistake. ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي. I repent and I am sorry and I do istighfar for what it is that I have done. When Iblis did something wrong, what did he say? This has nothing to do with me whatsoever. It was the position that I was in. It was the situation I was in. It was not my fault at all. And I've got nothing to play here. So an individual who takes accountability is someone who is destined to the heavens, and an individual who doesn't is someone who is not at all. So when it comes to us actually taking accountability for our actions, you see that this is ingrained within inside the human formula, and only when we take this into consideration we see that we can purify ourselves to a much higher degree. As I mentioned, we will conclude on a second practical note in regards to how we can go about purifying our nafs. There's a model of akhlaq given to us by the ulama, and it's divided into three major steps. What are those steps? The first, musharata. The second, muraqaba. And the third, muhasaba. This is the most practical guideline I could possibly give you in order to attain this purification of the soul. The first step, as I mentioned, was what? Musharata. So in musharata, we need to avoid ghafla. What does this mean? Musharata comes from the root word shart. And shart is where you assign things for yourself that I must do this or I must not do this. I must say this or I must not say this. You put shurut upon yourself that I will do this or I will not do this. We see that many scholars have spoken about the different members of the human body, and they're mostly boiled down into 7. The eyes, the tongue, the stomach, the hands, the feet, so on and so forth. And he says that you have a responsibility. And these things have a right over you. Because these things are an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are they not? These things are a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how reckless of me if I use a gift that I have been given against the person that has given it to me. Can you imagine if we did this in real life? If someone gifted me a knife and I used it to kill them. How ironic. Isn't this the same that we do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When He has gifted me a tongue and He has gifted me eyes, He has gifted me ears and He has gifted me these things. And I use these things against Him. And I use these things not in order to seek Him, but rather in order to feed my own nafs and to feed my own desires. So using these things against Him is treachery, right, to a degree. And we need to see that all of these things have a right. So point being, step number 1, musharata. When you wake up in the morning, you enlist certain shurut upon yourself. I have a tendency of, mathalan, backbiting. Today I will make sure that I will not backbite. Your musharata is done. You now move on to step 2. Step 2 is muraqabah. I have now put this shart upon myself that I will not backbite. I now need to hold myself accountable for the entire day and stay vigilant and keep myself away from situations that would lead me to this. So when I talk about muraqabah, and when I talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly being present and constantly being aware, we see that muraqabah is truly this. There was a mystic in Iran by the name of Hiyat. He was a tailor who was probably one of the highest mystics that we have in modern history. Hiyat, he said, there is not a single needle I put in a cloth that is not with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when our every moment is laced with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's when we're truly doing muraqabah. So if I have now made a shart and done musharata to say I will not backbite, the only way I can truly fulfill this is to be God conscious. And is to truly say that God is present throughout the day and He is seeing. Am I abiding by the shart that I have given to myself? We conclude on the final note, which is muhasaba. At the end of the day, we take account. Did I fulfill the shart that I gave to myself in the morning? And what are the things that I did in the day that I would like to avoid moving forward? Then the process repeats. So the things that you want to improve, you bring it back to musharata, you enlist it as a shart for yourself, and you keep on going. It's the small refinements, There is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he speaks about the same concept. He said it's not about the one act of brilliance. He said it's never about that. He said it's always about the small acts of progress. Amir al-Mu'mineen speaks about this time and time again. The small acts of progress that bring huge development. He speaks about the hitting of a stone. He says that when you see a stonemason hitting a stone, you see him hit it 99 times and not even a crack appears in it. Then he hits it the 100th time and it splits in half entirely. However, I've been looking at this the entire time and I understood it was not the 100th strike that caused it to crack, rather it was the 99 that preceded it. So when we are feeling discouraged and when we're feeling demotivated, it's not one act of excellence that's going to change everything. It's the small micro acts on a daily basis that take us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ali reiterates this point time and time again. He states that it's not about us doing something marvelous and magnificent. You need to slowly bring yourself towards a habit and an act of doing something. What did Aristotle say? Excellence is a habit, not an act. Right? It's something that you consistently do. Not one act of brilliance. It's something that you consistently do and move forward with. So that being said, that concludes our lecture. And we spoke about, of course, our theme being the inner and the outer struggle of the human. And we spoke about the zahiri and the batini analysis of the human. We said that there is an inner and outer component to everything, the same way there is an inner and outer component to wudu, and there is an inner outer component to salah. And we said in order for us to actually make use of the ilm that we are spending so much time obtaining, we need to make sure that we purify our souls first. The first step is contemplation, and of course the second step is musharata, muraqaba and muhasaba. And I ask you, who better epitomize this than Sayyidah Fatima, salamullahi alayha, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sayyidah Fatima, when we look at the contemplation, when we look at the acts of muhasaba, of muraqaba, of musharata, we see that there is a reason why she is Sayyidatul Nisa'il Alameen. We see that it's not simply a title that's given to her. As I said at the beginning, we're not just about slogans and rituals. There's a deeper meaning and dimension to all of these things. So when we talk about Sayyidah Fatima, we understand that contemplation, we mentioned, is something that drives you to action. So when it came to Sayyidah Fatima actually going and giving the sermon of Fadak, we say that this came as a result of the utter contemplation that she used to do. This came as a result of the thinking, the tafakkur, the tadabbur that she actually used to go through. Ayatollah Safi Gulpaygani in Iran, he stated that Fatimiyya is Ashura. Now this is a big statement, is it not? Fatimiyya is Ashura. So for us trying to understand the parallel between Fatimiyya and Ashura, first we need to understand what the philosophies behind them both were. In a single sentence, if we see what was the purpose of Ashura, is standing up against oppression. And in the same note, when we look at what the purpose of Fatimiyya was, standing up against oppression. So when we say Fatimiyya is Ashura and Ashura is Fatimiyya, we say that standing up to oppression is the value that we need to take away. So if we are commemorating Fatimiyya, we need to make sure that we have taken this attribute and we are manifesting it in our life. So if the purpose of Ashura was to stand against oppression, I need to make sure I stand against oppression. If the purpose of Fatimiyya was to stand against oppression, I need to make sure I stand against oppression, even if it is against myself, which is today's lecture. If I am oppressing myself, if I am sinning, I am wronging myself. The dua that we read, ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي. Yes, I have wronged myself. So when we say that we have wronged ourselves, we see that Fatimiyya most definitely is Ashura, because this was a stance against the leaders of oppression. So on this note, we see that the story of contemplation that we can take, and inshallah as a lesson for Fatimiyya today, would be Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He saw Sayyidah Fatima doing a dua from Maghrib till Fajr. And she was reading out loud and she was doing istighfar for everyone by name. All of the mu'mineen by name she was reading. So Imam Hassan was present for the entire salah, from dawn to dusk. And then when he came out, he said to Sayyidah Fatima, you mentioned everyone's name, but you didn't mention yours. Why? What did Sayyidah Fatima say in response? It's the responsibility that you have over others that comes first. It's the responsibility that you have over others that drives your inner impetus. So when we have the verse in the Quran, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. Brothers and sisters, I ask you, why is it in this order? رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. Surely I should ask for the forgiveness of the mu'mineen. Surely I should ask for the forgiveness of my parents. However, the Quran is saying there's a difference between you and Sayyidah Fatima. When you are reciting, you first need to ask forgiveness for yourself. رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي Once you've asked forgiveness for yourself, then you're in a position to ask for forgiveness for your parents. When you've asked for forgiveness for your parents, then you are in a position to ask for forgiveness for the mu'mineen. So when we see Sayyidah Fatima asking for forgiveness for the mu'mineen, we see that this purification, this tazkiyah, this inner battle has most definitely been won. This zahir and the batin and the combination of them all has most definitely manifested and taken place. This accountability, this contemplation, all of this is an epitome in the life of Sayyidah Fatima. We see when her rights were usurped and everything was taken from her, what's the first thing that she said? When she stood at the sermon of Fadak, she stood and she stated, Alhamdulillah ala ma an'amala wa lahu shukr. Imagine. Every difficulty has befallen you. Your parents have passed away. Your rights have been usurped. The first thing she says into the eyes of the oppressor is, Alhamdulillah, for all the blessings that I have been given. She has taken accountability and responsibility for all that happens in her life. So, from these points, we understand that Fatimiyya itself most definitely is an event of commemoration. However, as I mentioned, it's not just a marking of an event. It's very important for us to recognize, and it's very important for us to realize that when we commemorate the istishhad of the ma'asumeen, we're not just marking the day. Mathalan, if there was a birthday or a death day of an insignificant individual such as myself, that would just be the marking of an event. However, when we do it for the ma'asumeen, there's an entirely different idea behind it. If I am commemorating Fatimiyya, simply me sitting in the majlis is not commemoration of Sayyidah Fatima. Me taking a lesson from her life is the commemoration of Fatimiyya. So the purpose of the majlis is for me to understand what lesson can I take away and apply when I leave the hall, and apply when I leave the room. Only then is Fatimiyya upheld, and only then is Fatimiyya fulfilled. If I don't apply the lessons, and if I don't listen to what she actually went through in her life, then what's the entire point of this activity? We've listened to something and we've moved along. This is simply we would say, an injustice of time for everyone who is in consideration here. So that being said, when we look at Sayyidah Fatima and the entirety of her life, what is the principle we're supposed to extract? The principle we're supposed to extract is that of contemplation, of tafakkur, and how we're supposed to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the death of Sayyidah Fatima is of course incredibly tragic. And we see the position of the Ma'asumeen at this particular point in time. Her children, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Sayyidah Zainab and Kulthum, were very young at the time. The ages were 6, 7, 5 and 3 for all of the children. However, Sayyidah Fatima, she had a dream, and in that dream Rasulullah informed her that your time has now come and you will now be meeting me soon. So Sayyidah Fatima, first of all, she bid well to Imam Ali, who would then be alone for the next 30 years. And then at this point in time, she called Rafi'a for the ghusl. She wanted the ghusl to be performed before she passed away. She asked her to pour water so that she can wash herself, and she put on clothes that she had not worn since her father had passed away, as if she was looking forward to meeting someone. And you could see the happiness was coming back in the eyes of Sayyidah Fatima. After that, she asked for a bed to be put in the middle of the room. And she said that I would like to be put up on this bed because my time is about to approach. She faced the Kaaba, and once she faced the Kaaba, she returned back to her Lord. She asked Imam Ali to bury her in the night. When I think of the strength of Imam Ali, I think of this moment. I don't think about Khaybar, I don't think about Badr, I don't think about Khandaq, I don't think about these things. When I think about the strength of Imam Ali, I think about this moment. That we see that an individual who is able to really uphold all of the difficulties and the trials and the tribulations that are given to him, this is a point in time where even the great man himself struggles. We see that after the passing of Sayyidah Fatima, he says that life for me will be very long after the passing of Sayyidah Fatima. It's not going to be an easy or quick ride for me anymore. He states that we have a tradition from Imam Ali, which is, I think, a beautiful sentiment to, inshallah, end our lecture upon. When we're trying to see the maqam of Sayyidah Fatima and what Imam Ali thought of her, he stated Fatima was like a delicate flower, spreading her fragrance across the world. But alas, the flower was plucked and its fragrance departed too soon. I was left with the stem that reminded me of what I was lost. So you can see the maqam of Sayyidah Fatima in the eyes of Ali ibn Abi Talib was definitely a huge loss, not just for Imam Ali, but for humanity as a whole. And in order for us to truly honor her memory, we need to make sure that we apply the principles of our life, which was the discussion that we had today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, grant us tawfiq to apply these lessons. Our theme, which is the inner and the outer struggle of the mu'min, will conclude tomorrow. where today we spoke about the inner struggle of the mu'min and the points of solution to it. Tomorrow we will talk about the outer struggles of the mu'min, and inshallah how Fatimi will help us to overcome this. وآخر دعوانا والحمد لله رب العالمين صلوات على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على فاطمة وبعلها وبنيها وسر المستودع فيها بعدد ما أحاط به علمك يا أيها العزيز مسنا وأهلنا الضر وجئنا ببضاعة مزجاة فأوف لنا الكيل فتصدق علينا إن الله يجزي المتصدقين. من پسر خون خدا مهدیم طالب خون شهدا مهدیم مادر من مادر من مادر خون خداست مادر من مرا مقتداست مادر من ام ابیها بود مادر من ام ابیها بود مادر من حضرت زهرا مادر من بهشت احمد بود روح دو پهلوی محمد بود مادر من سیدت الانبیاست دایرت المعارف کبریاست اسمت حق اسمت حق همسر حبل المتین است یا زهرا اسمت حق همسر حبل المتین است ام نبی ام کتاب ام دین است مادر من روح نماز شب است حاصلی از تربیتش زینب است زینب است
شب شهادت خانم حضرت زهرا سلام الله علیها چندین ماهه که خانم خسته دل شکسته چشم بر خواب نگذاشته خانم مشتاق دیدار رسول الله آماده پیوستن به رسول الله با دلی پر از شکایت برای پدرشون رسول الله آماده دیدارن امشب امیرالمؤمنین بار سنگینی به دوش داره و امیرالمؤمنین حرفای آخر و قرارهای آخر رو با فاطمه داره میگذاره چی میگه امیرالمؤمنین به زهرا
انگار که چشمان تو را خواب گرفته
فاطمه
انگار که چشمان تو را خواب گرفته کاشانه ما را غم سیلاب گرفته 70 شب است این که نخوابی دیم ما شب است این که نخوابی دیم ما حالا چه شده چشم تو را خواب گرفته او زهرا It's been 70 nights where you have not slept. You've been in pain, in suffering. How come you are feeling ready to shut your eyes tonight? What has changed, Zahra? Israr nadoram. اصرار ندارم که تو را سیر ببینم فاطمه جان نزدیک 3 ماه است که مهتاب گرفته میدونی یعنی چی 3 ماه است که مهتاب گرفته؟ یعنی که 3 ماهه که فاطمه روی خودش رو از علی گرفته پوشیده خودش رو جای زخم هستش جای سیلی هستش خانوم نمیخواد علی ببینه این دفعه آخه یکی 2 تا زخم نیستش این دفعه چندم شده از صبح که زینب پیراهن گلدار تو را آب گرفته واکن گره رو سریعت را ولی آرام این مقنعه را لخته خوناب گرفته تا که سر تو چه اتفاقی افتاده که سر زخمیه بدن زخمیه چادر گلداره تا که سر تو خورد به دیوار شکستن سر دست و سر و دست و نفس از جگرم تاب گرفته ای زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یه خط روزه باز انشالله حقش رو ادا کنید. شب شهادت خانم حضرت زهراست. وقتی که جماعت، چه اتفاقی افتاد کوچه بنی هاشم، وقتی که جماعت لا اله الا الله لا اله الا الله یا صاحب الزمان منو ببخشید. وقتی که جماعت به سرش ریخ زمین خورد، وقتی که زمین خورد نگاهی به حسن کرد. یا امام حسن، از شما پرسیدن کدوم مصیبت شماست؟ آیا مصیبت زهرا مسمومیت شماست؟ مسئله شهادت شماست؟ آقا امام حسن فرمودن مصیبت ما مصیبت کوچه، مصیبت مدینه. همون موقعی که مادرم زمین افتاد، ای وای از مدینه، ای شهر رسول خدا. ببین رسول الله چگونه با فاطمه رفتار کردن. فاطمه با شکوه و گله راهی دیدار رسول الله شد. حالا از زبان آقا امام حسن مگه یادم میره من بودم و یه گل پرپر، مگه یادم میره دستی روی صورت مادر، مگه یادم میره من بودم و یه گل پرپر، مگه یادم میره روی زمین ناله زهرا، مگه یادم میره دستی سیاه که میره بالا، مگه یادم میره من بودم و کوچه غمها حوری سوخت در آتش، حوری سوخت در آتش، از پا تا سر آتش بر روی مرتضی شرم، بر روی ما در آتش در سوخت پر سوخت یاس پیمبر سوخت. در سوخت تجسم کن، در سوخت پر سوخت یاس پیمبر سوخت، از آه ناگاه تمام حیدر سوخت، علی به سمت مسجد روونه، آتیش گرفته تموم خونه، مادر گرفته. خیلی درد داره تجسم بکنی. علی به سمت مسجد روونه، آتیش گرفته تموم خونه، مادر گرفته دامان مولا، پیچیده دستش به تازیونه. امی از زهرا مظلومه، امی از زهرا مظلومه، امی از زهرا مظلومه. انشالله همه هم صدا بشید با یتیمای خانم زهرا. Everyone say it with the orphans of Lady Zahra. امی از زهرا مظلومه، امی از زهرا مظلومه، امی از زهرا مظلومه. Everyone. امی از زهرا مظلومه. With all your voice. امی از زهرا. زهرا. One more time. امی از زهرا. زهرا مظلومه. Inshallah, if everyone can stand up on their feet, inshallah, we'll beat our chests for a few minutes in the remembrance of Lady Fatima with your loudest salawat. Ya Zahra, 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 Ya Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya. One more time. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. Oh Ali, 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 Ali. Ali, Ali. Story of the man, the story of the man. His patience was unmatched. The story of the man. His patience was unmatched. The lessons from his life from the world be detached. Ali, Ali, Ali.
story of the man, the story of the man. His patience was unmatched. The lesson from his life, from the world be detached, from the world be detached. Ali had his God-given right taken, yet for God he struggled and remained patient. Ali had his God-given right taken, yet for God he struggled and remained patient. His patience like Ayyub, with the tears of Yaqub. His patience like Ayyub, with the tears of Yaqub. Crying for Az-Zahra, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, 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 Ya Haydar, Ali. One more time. Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar. With your loudest voice, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla. A stranger to this earth, still after all these years. A stranger to this earth, still after all these years. The message of Ali rings in the Shia's ears. The same warrior who fought with honor, the same warrior who fought with honor, was the orphans' helpers just like their father. The truth is with Ali, Ali is with the truth. The truth is with Ali, Ali is with the truth. The world of Rasulullah, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, 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 Ya Haydar, Ya Haydar, Ali. Bring your hands up. Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla, Ya Haydar, Ali Mawla. روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاست، ذکر نورانی عاشق هاست، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاست، ذکر نورانی عاشق ها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا.
الله اکبر این همه جلال، الله اکبر این همه شکوه، همه الله اکبر این همه جلال، الله الله اکبر در راه علی، فاطمه ایستاده مثل یک کوه. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله. Everyone, everyone. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه. If no one else will mourn you, I'll mourn you alone. If no one else more will, if no one else will mourn you with me, I'll mourn you alone. Your broken ribs and your burning home, all this love and so less of you is known. The tablet and the pen attest to you, the secrets of secrets rested with you. The tablet and the pen attest to you, the secret of secrets rested with you. Ayah after ayah came in your name. Sallallahu alayk ya Fatima, sallallahu alayk ya Fatima. Everyone, sallallahu alayk. Sallallahu alayk ya Fatima, sallallahu alayk ya Fatima. میدونم که راز شهادت این اشکا، میدونم که راز شهادت این اشکا، رنگ خدا میگیرم من با تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الحمدلله که نوکرتم، الحمدلله که مادرمی، همه الحمدلله که نوکرتم. One more time. Alhamdulillah. درمی الحمدلله از بچگیام مادر سایه روی سرمی. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک. One more time. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه یا زهرا. Everyone call out یا زهرا، یا زهرا، یا زهرا.
My mother's Fatima, the mother of Hussein and Hassan. Fatima, whose status we cannot comprehend. Fatima, the mother of believers. Zahra, Zahra, Zahra. Inshallah, everyone, this is your response. The mother of believers, Zahra, Zahra, Zahra. On that day you will save us, Zahra, 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 Zahra. Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, with your loudest voice, Ya Zahra, Ya Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra, Ya Zahra. My mother's Fatima, the mother of Hussein and Hassan. Fatima, whose status we cannot comprehend. Fatima, my mother's Fatima, the mother of Hussein and Hassan. Fatima, whose status we cannot comprehend. Fatima, the mother of believers. Zahra, 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 the mother of believers. Zahra, on that day you will save us. Zahra, 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 the daughter of Muhammad. Zahra, 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 the daughter of Muhammad. Zahra, 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 Qiyamahu will save us, but Zahra, 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 Zahra. گر نگاهی به ما کند زهرا، دردها را دوا کند زهرا. به فاطمة الزهرا یا الله، یا الله، یا الله، یا یا الله، یا رحمان، یا رحیم، یا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. يا الله إلهي يا حميد بحق محمد، يا عالي بحق علي، يا فاطر بحق فاطمة، يا محسن بحق الحسن، يا قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين. Just one dua, which is the ultimate dua for the ending of all suffering, all injustice, and for the ultimate hidayah, the ultimate tazkiyah that we can receive. اللهم عجل وليك الفرج، اللهم عجل وليك الفرج اللهم عجل وليك الفرج. Inshallah we'll recite dua al-faraj. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنهم أرضك طوعا وتمتعهم فيها تبينا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, we'll recite a hamd preceded by the loudest of your salawats.
Thank you to everyone who joined us here today on the first night of our Fatimiyya events. A special thank you to Syed Naqvi and Haj Mohammad KhazAli for their beautiful recitations and speeches. Just a quick note, tomorrow we'll be back here at 6:15, the same building but upstairs, inshallah. And of course, we ask all of our tears to be accepted. And we ask for the intercession of Lady Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha on the Day of Judgment. Thank you all for joining us. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.